On average, at least one police officer is shot in the line of duty every day in America. The media doesn't want to talk about that fact, but it is a fact. In 2022, 412 officers were shot. In 2021, 441. 2020, 404. And as with everything crime-related, these numbers are higher post the summer of Floyd 2020 than prior to that, with 367 in 2019 and only 276 in 2018. In 2022, 64 officers were fatally shot in the line of duty, and 15 so far this year have lost their lives due to gunfire. This is a dangerous job that got much more dangerous after the riots of 2020 and the defund the police movement. Let's take a look at some recent shootings. Now, these are just from April 12th through April 16th, and I have 5 incidents to report among officers, as well as a canine we lost this week due to gunfire. So let's start on April 16th in Biloxi, Mississippi. And we had a law enforcement officer injured, as well as 4 victims that were injured. This was a mass shooting that occurred in Biloxi. A Coast police officer and other civilians were injured Sunday when shots rang out on US 90 on the final day of Black Spring Break. There's a Black Spring Break? Oh, okay. The shots could be heard in the 2400 block of Beachfront Highway. Biloxi police spokeswoman said authorities are still trying to piece together exactly what happened and where and how many were injured. We were all outside our vehicles working traffic, and it started. It was all around us. We had officers responding to multiple locations. This is a police officer talking. The Biloxi police officer who was shot and injured was among other officers from different agencies responding to the action that also prompted crowds in the area of gunfire to run for safety. A video shows members of law enforcement helping the injured officer get to an ambulance. The officer sustained minor injuries and was treated at an area hospital. Biloxi spokesperson said the other 2 victims suffered minor injuries and were taken to an area hospital for treatment. Okay, so this was a mass shooting that happened in Biloxi, Mississippi, and a police officer just became one of the victims while they were all, it sounds like they were just all there for traffic duty, and when the shots rang out, one of the police officers was hit by a stray bullet, along with at least 4 other just bystanders. Okay, also on April 16th in Denmark, South Carolina, we have a law enforcement officer that was injured. That's Lance Corporal B.A. Frazier, and the suspect was unharmed and arrested. He's 37-year-old Derrick Edward Gathers, and this looks like it took place during a traffic stop. A 37-year-old man is accused of shooting a state trooper in the face and shooting at a Bamberg County Sheriff's Office deputy. Derrick Edwards Gathers of Augusta is charged with 2 counts of attempted murder, 1 count of possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime, and 1 count of failure to stop for blue lights. The incident occurred in Bamberg County, just outside of Denmark. Frazier attempted to stop a vehicle around 3:30 a.m. Sunday. Gathers was allegedly traveling more than 20 miles an hour over the speed limit. Warrants claim that during the traffic stop, Gathers shot Frazier in the face and shot at a deputy. The deputy was not physically injured. Gathers allegedly fled. Gathers' vehicle crashed into a house. Gathers was booked into the Bamberg Detention Center at 1:59 p.m. Monday. Frazier is reportedly in stable condition and speaking with family and friends. So I got a picture of this guy who was, speeding in the middle of the night and gets pulled over and decides to shoot 2 police officers instead of accepting the speeding ticket. So there was a reason for that, but the incident happened at 3:30 in the morning, and he wasn't arrested till 1:59 p.m. So, he might have been drunk or on drugs or something, and decided to delay the arrest by 8 hours. Okay, let's move to Cyrus, Minnesota. We have an officer that was killed, an officer injured, 2 officers injured, and a suspect that was killed. The officer that was killed was Deputy Joshua Owen. He was 44. And Deputy Brody Merrill, as well as another officer, were injured. And this was during a domestic violence call, which we all know these are dangerous calls for police to go on. A Western Minnesota sheriff's deputy was shot and killed, and 2 other law enforcement officers were injured while responding to a domestic dispute call Saturday night. The suspected shooter is dead. 1 officer from the Starbuck Police Department and 2 deputies from the Pope County Sheriff's Office were struck by gunfire about 7:30 p.m. Saturday while answering a domestic call at the Cyrus apartment building. As the officers attempted to arrest the man involved, he shot at them, striking all 3 before they returned fire and fatally shot him. Deputy Joshua Owen was taken to a hospital and died, according to the sheriff's office. The other deputy and the Starbuck officer suffered non-critical injuries. Records show Owen was killed on his 44th birthday. Wow. A military veteran, he leaves behind a wife and son. He had been with the sheriff's office for 12 years. So he goes to work on his 44th birthday and gets fatally shot during a domestic call. And they always say, pretty much any call a cop goes on, they all could be bad. But they always say these domestic ones are some of the worst ones for police officers, the most dangerous, because you never really know what the people are going to do. But traffic stops are, as we see in a lot of these, are equally as bad. Okay, let's go to Watsontown, Pennsylvania. We got a law enforcement officer injured and a suspect injured and arrested. The officer is Officer Milton, and the suspect is 19-year-old Hunter Shaheen. And this is another domestic violence call. Okay. Let's see what we got. Okay, a Pennsylvania state trooper was wounded Wednesday morning during an exchange of gunfire with a suspect. The trooper was investigating a domestic disturbance. The suspect took off and was found in an apartment complex around 8:15 a.m. Inside the home near Waterson, they heard gunshots. This guy, John Gunmo. I went to the window and I saw a man down there in the field and he was down. Then I saw a state policeman and he had been shot. Investigators say that the trooper and Waterstown police were investigating a domestic disturbance. 19-year-old Hunter Shaheen took off and was found in nearby Delaware Township around 8:15 a.m. And the witness says, I saw a whole bunch of them come up through 8th Street, all the way through down there where the red light is, and they went past our house. Then they were clear and way out towards Warren Run High School. Shots were fired, and Shaheen and the trooper were both hit. The trooper suffered a wound to the leg and was treated at the hospital. Shaheen is stable and faces charges related to the domestic violence disturbance as well as the shooting. So this is another incident where a domestic violence disturbance goes wrong. These guys, when they're in the middle of these domestic things, these guys are often already a little unhinged. So you add a police officer to that situation, and it oftentimes probably doesn't make the situation any better. It probably helps the lady that's involved. Normally it's a lady. But it doesn't make the situation any better as far as what the suspect is going through. So April 15th in Nyssa, Oregon, we have a police officer who was killed. So this is the second officer this week that was killed by gunfire. Reserve Officer Joseph Johnson, he was 43 years old, and the suspect was unharmed and arrested. He was 36-year-old Rene Castro. And I, at least on this video, I found a lot of pictures of these people so you can see who these guys are and what they look like. Saturday night, an on-duty police officer was killed by gunfire after chasing a violent suspect. According to Oregon State Police, around 8:20 p.m., Officer Joseph Johnson with the Nyssa Police Department responded to a call concerning a violent suspect who was reportedly damaging property and threatening others. While responding to the call, Officer Johnson learned that the suspect, identified as Rene Castro, had fled the scene in a vehicle, and a pursuit subsequently followed. The Oregon State Police says when it appeared that the vehicle was stopped at the residence, Officer Johnson pulled off the road as well. Officials say upon stopping an armed subject, authorities believed to be Castro began firing shots at Officer Johnson. Officials say there was not enough time to return fire before Officer Johnson was fatally struck by a bullet. Castro fled the scene immediately after. EMTs were on the scene in record time, but Officer Johnson was already dead at the scene. So this guy shoots, this Castro guy shoots at this officer, and he didn't even have enough time to shoot fire or to return fire, and he was pronounced dead at the scene. And this stuff, I mean, you don't know what you're getting into. He's following this guy, and he was described as a violent suspect, so he was probably like on alert, with this guy anyway. And the guy they get out and they just start shooting. And the cop doesn't have, they're not going to exit their car. Well, maybe sometimes they do exit their car armed with their gun out already, but I don't know. So we got one more, and this one is Canine Rudy of the Riverside County Sheriff's Department in California. Canine Rudy was shot and killed in Paris while tracking a wanted felon at about 4:45 p.m. Deputies were in the area looking for a man when dispatchers received a call about a couple trespassing on their property. The deputies were able to confirm the man was a fugitive and requested a canine to conduct a track. Canine Rudy's handler responded to the scene and began tracking the suspect. Canine Rudy alerted to the subject's presence, and the man opened fire, killing Canine Rudy. The couple then fled on foot, and the wanted man was fatally shot when he pointed his firearm at pursuing deputies. Canine Rudy had won a first-place award at the Las Vegas Metro Police Canine Trials the previous month. So here you have sounds like it, one of the top canines in the country who gets shot by this guy who then ends up dead because he fired at the police officers and killed the canine. And we don't always talk about the canines, and I try to cover them as much as I can. But this is the 6th canine that has died this year. 2 by gunfire. 1 was animal related. I think he got bit by a snake. 1 was in an automobile crash. Another is called a duty related illness. I don't remember that one, how he got sick. And 1 was stabbed. And these canines are very important to these officers. So you have 30 police officers have died in the line of duty this year. 15, half, by gunfire. And you have 6 canines that have died in the line of duty this year, and 2 have been from gunfire. And gunfire is easily, aside from the years that we had all the COVID deaths, gunfire is easily the most common way that police officers died. Last year, there were a total of 245 line of duty deaths for police officers, and 64 of them were gunfire, but there were 81 of them were COVID related because we were still having a lot of COVID deaths even up through last year. And the canines last year, there were 25 canine deaths, and 11 were due to gunfire. So not quite half, but pretty close to half of the canines are killed by gunfire. And the second highest actually for the canines is heat stroke. just being left in the vehicles when the vehicles are warm or when it's too warm outside. Anyway, those are a few of the officers that had been shot this week. I just wanted to do a video on that and let people know there were two that were killed, and what do we have? 5 or 6 that were injured, as well as the canine.